So there was this weekend that I went to a wedding. I was a bridesmaid in a wedding. And so, got all fancy over the weekend. And then when I came to work on Monday, I got so many compliments from my team about my hair because I was having my natural hair at work. And then for the wedding, I straightened it out and whatever to match the other bridesmaids. But it wasn't like, Dana, you look so lovely today. It was, Dana, wow, you look so professional today.
Oh,
Exactly my point. And in that moment, I kind of realized for the first time that my natural hair, who I was, my nature was seen as unprofessional. And I don't think that I realized it truly until that moment. Also, just small things. So I am not and was not in those days a big drinker. Okay, maybe that's changed a little bit now, if I'm being honest.
I was going to say, now you've got twins.
In those days, I really wasn't. But there is a huge pub culture in the UK, but also, I did join a graduate scheme. So what do you expect? Mm-hmm. And so there was like multiple goings to the pub every week, which was fine. But I was different because I was a newlywed. So also worth noting that I didn't join a graduate scheme party. I did join the graduate scheme because I really had only graduated a year ago, but my life looked a little bit different. And so the going out to the pub and whatever, I just wanted to go home and snuggle and watch TV and be married and all of that stuff. And I quickly realized that stuff happened at the pub. So people made connections, they got to know each other, they were choosing each other for their next jobs and whatever. And I was being left out of that. And if I wanted to be a part of that, I needed to go to the pub. And so I went to the pub. But then you have to go to the pub and there's this whole rounds thing. And there's so many people and so many rounds. And who wants to drink so many rounds? Well, I didn't at that point in time. But then if you drank something that was non-alcoholic, for example, you'd get comments back like, I don't trust someone who doesn't drink or whatever. And so the next thing you know, with the pressure of all of that, your head's in a fishbowl with 10 other people who have straws and you're doing the do because that's what you do, even though you don't really enjoy it, right? Also small things like sometimes I would say something that was an idea or a thought I would have, and there was like this whole little banter going on, like, Dana, that's maybe how it worked in the islands, but that's not how we do things here. That kind of like a back and forthy thing that was funny, and everyone was laughing about it. But then I started realizing that I was losing my voice because I was so afraid to speak up in case I got that reaction back. The final thing I'm just going to say about not belonging is that Trinidadian people by nature are very warm, but are also very blunt. And in the UK, there is this air of politeness, especially in consulting, I think must be even worse, that covers everything. And so when I first started my career, managers would say to me, and by the way, lots of managers, because it was consulting and the jobs changed all the time, they would say to me, Dana, you might want to think about and then say a thing. And I took that literally, like I might want to think about it, and I'd go away and I'd think about it. And if I thought it should be implemented, I would do that thing. And if it didn't, I wouldn't. Not realizing that you might want to think about means, Dana, go do that thing. So then I started to get negative feedback that I wasn't listening to feedback, but I was listening, but I thought it was an optional because of the way that it was phrased. And then in the same breath, I would get feedback that I didn't give feedback kindly enough because I would just say the thing, right? I wouldn't say you might want to think about. I would say, just do this thing. And that wasn't an acceptable way to be. And so it felt almost like having to learn a foreign language. So I would be at home thinking about a feedback conversation that I wanted to have with someone the next day and having to plan out how I would say that conversation against my natural way of talking. right? So it was almost like I had to translate it into the correct and appropriate language to be able to say it and learn that behavior. And I just think that while I was spending so much time and energy assimilating and learning how to be different, other people didn't have to do that.
Right.
And so they had a lot of cognitive space that was freed up to be able to be themselves and do things that they wanted to do. And I had to spend a lot of time dealing with that kind of churn. It was really difficult. Also, you know, consultancy is very suited and booted, and I have a very exuberant personality. I'm not sure if you can tell. And so sometimes I would get told to, like, you know, button up a little bit and be a little bit more what they think is professional, and that in itself was difficult. And so that was me feeling like I didn't belong in that space, even though, like, if you looked at the company from the outside perspective, you might have given them a tick for inclusion and for diversity as well, because people from all over the world did work there. They had a mix of languages, they had a good balance of genders. You would probably give them a tick on diversity, and their policies and stuff were pretty explicit, maybe not followed, but explicit when it came to things that were supposed to promote inclusion. But ultimately, I didn't fit, Eloise, is what I'm saying. And so when I went to my next job that was after that one, it was a bit more different. It had more of a startup-y vibe. No suits were required. And they did not have the diversity mix at first that my initial firm had. But I felt so welcome there. I didn't have to second guess myself. I didn't have to tone down my ideas. I remember a really brilliant moment where my boss said to me, "I feel like you're holding back. Tell me your craziest idea and tell me what it is, because I feel like I'm watching you self-censoring." And I told him, and he was like, "Yeah, that's absolutely what we're going to do." All of a sudden, my forthrightness was valued. My directness had value. And I was able to, and I know this sounds like a cliche and people argue about it all the time, but I was able to be my full self at work. I didn't have to be someone else to get ahead. And I fit. And for me, that's what it feels like.